Also, AGID seeks to use advanced genomics science to accelerate the production of a homemade vaccine against the virus. The West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, WACBIP, a cell biology research center dedicated to the diagnostics of tropical diseases in sub-Saharan Africa at the University of Ghana, has also successfully sequenced genomes of SARS-CoV-2. This is a milestone in Ghana's response to the pandemic, as it will aid in the tracing of the sources of community infections in people with no known contact with confirmed cases. Other centers of excellence are contributing to knowledge on management of the virus through innovative research. Centers such as the Regional Transport Research and Education, TREC, hosted by the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, examined how the COVID-19 is spreading in time and into new areas, its impact on urban mobility, and the environmental effect of the lockdown. To support continuous teaching and learning in their respective institutions, the Africa Centers of Excellence are adopting innovative measures by moving classes online. Learning management systems such as Moodle, Sakai, Google Classroom, among others, are being used. The Africa Center of Excellence project is a flagship program where the World Bank, in partnership with the French Development Agency, AFD, and regional partners such as the Association of African Universities and ECOWAS, are supporting African governments to invest in quality postgraduate education and applied research.
This is a car, right? I mean, for us in Africa, this is too small to be a car, but it's a car, honestly. And this is what? This is a cyclist on his bicycle.
A white cycle.
Well. And this is another car. What is this driver? What did he do?
He noticed the door is open, so he's looking behind and he's going to ram into them.
Okay. Now, this door is open and this door is also open. Now, you can complete the story. What do you think happened after this? Possibly. Yeah, so we imagine this guy ran into this guy and there was an accident. What caused this accident? Which of them really is the cause of this accident?
The door, no. Both of them. The white man is not talking. The guy on the bike is not watching. Where is he?
I hope you know that if we don't resolve this problem, today we sleep here. Yes. Because this is a matter of importance and, this is safety and security. So who are we blaming here for this accident?
I think the bike.
Yes. Yes, Rahila.
Yes, sir. The guy on the bike should be blamed. But he's not watching while riding.
Okay.
And this other...
Rahila is going to blame this bike man. He will pull the bike man down, pull out, they call it kiboko in Swahili. We call it koboko here. Yeah, these are Arabic words. So she's going to flog with kiboko or koboko, this thing. Yeah, the bike man. Yes, Moses.
I will blame the bike man because he's responsible for his own life. Yes, he's responsible for his life. He should be watchful. He shouldn't keep his life in somebody's hand.
All right.
I'm not sure how the person will take it.
All right. Yeah, nobody should be surprised. I mean, we all know what Moses did to Pharaoh. So that this kind of suggestion is coming from Moses is perfectly in order. Take your own life in your hand. If you go and fall into River Egypt, River Nile, that's your headache. Okay, how many people will blame the bike man? Okay, all right. All right. Whom will you blame, Sheung?
Well, it's the car that's open, like this second car.
This one?
Yes, it's the independence to me. It's the independent variable.
How is it the cause of the accident?
Well, if it had not been there wouldn't have been
Any need to look back. Hey. All right. But it may also be that this guy hasn't read about Lot's wife. So that is another reason that we are going to blame. Okay. Are we seeing how something that is on the surface simple can really get complicated? Now, who is going to blame this guy here? Which is your surname? Because now the way the surnames are transposed.
Okay, the surnames are Langeli.
Okay, so Tunde, Baba Tunde.
Yes, sir.
Why would you blame the?
By the time you want to open the door of your car.
What? At least you look back.
Yes.
I mean, it's not. Yeah. So, all right. Now let us untangle this a little bit. This is what we are saying. Sometimes, for an outcome to be produced, different independent factors have to work together. If this guy was not there, as innocent as his case appears to be, if this guy was not there, I don't know, but somehow, my first impression is there probably was a lady here that this guy, how men and ladies behave. Now, but if this car was not here, this man would not be looking back. If he did not look back, he would see this guy, even if this guy was there and the door was open. Right? Now, so this guy has to be here. This guy had to look back. This guy had to open the door. All these three have to be present for the accident to happen. Remove one of them, and there will not have been an accident. Let me check her name. Yes, Moses.
The cyclists are concentrated.
Yes.
Despite those two, there may not.
That is what we are saying.
On the other car, I was.
They are not. There's not this business.
No, that is what we are saying. That is the point we are saying. Now let's bring this to let's bring this to real life. Well, that's also real life situation. Do you know that many times we concentrate in our policy, we take members of staff of an organization and we begin to spend money training them, as if training alone will lead to better performance. But if we are careful, we'll know that this training has to be complemented by a better reward system, has to be complemented by the necessary equipment and tools they need. If all of these three, if one is missing. So when this happens, we say what we have is conjunctural causation or conjunctural causality. Separate factors working together to produce an outcome. One working alone will not produce that outcome. Two working out instead of three instead of four may not produce that outcome. So it is not in every situation that an outcome is the product of just one singular X. There may be 2, 3 X's working together. A parked car with open door, with a good-looking babe inside it, a cyclist whose head is not in the right position, and then another car whose door is open, with a driver careless enough to open the door without checking if anybody was there. So all these three has to be there. And the implication for policy is we have got to be sensitive to the multiplicity of X's that may be at work in a particular situation. This is a study conducted by Susan here, Susan Kilonzo, our own Susan, Kenyan Susan. And she found that this is a study about devolution, power going down to, and she found that devolved decision making plus free maternal care plus community sensitization led to increased access to referral services. All these three were present to lead to this outcome. Imagine, what do you think will happen if there is devolved decision making? Now, government at the lower level are now free to make decisions about health, yes. But then, maternal care was not free. Would people in the same number access referral services? No. They will say, once you refer me, I know I'm going to pay more. I will go home and pray. Then your neighbor will say, if I was going to tell you the other day when my husband when we pray like this, so that is not going to lead to this. All these three have to be there. Maybe this will also apply to our trader money. Money without checks and balances, without entrepreneurial training, may not be able to lead to business growth. Maybe. I'm just guessing. This is a hypothetical example. A driver that was speeding. Oh, no. A driver that was speeding. This accident is our outcome, is our why. How did it happen? A driver was speeding, then elephants were crossing the road. What usually crosses the road in most of our African countries? It's not elephant. It's cattle. For us, if a goat crosses, that's okay. Then this guy pressed the brake, but then there was brake failure. And an oncoming vehicle, in other words, cannot go to the other side of the road. So this accident happened. This is a hypothetical example. I think we always want to emphasize the fact that in some cases, there is a multiplicity of X, but in our policy recommendations, we now say it as if you do just this one thing, it will happen. Just make insecticide-treated nets, just make these nets free for women. And then pediatric malaria will go down. That most cases can be too simplistic and it may not work. So we have conjunctural causality. Sometimes what we have is not these different factors working together. We may have a situation where separately and independently, each factor is capable of producing that outcome. We say all road leads to Rome. It can be London sometimes. And this is just like one way of illustrating that. So this is people from, which part of the world is this? I know this place. This is Australia or New Zealand. Doesn't matter. So from Australia, so you land in Rome. From Lagos, Abuja, Rome. Each of these routes is capable of taking people to Rome without necessarily working with the other. And when we have that, we have what we call equifinality, equal destination, kind of, equal final outcomes. And this is an illustration. What is responsible for high level of poverty in some African states? Let's say this is. And this says economic recession alone does produce poverty. War alone can produce poverty. corruption alone can produce poverty. So all the three do not have to be present for poverty to occur. This is an illustration. Maybe it's not a completely perfect one, but it's just to say this may be what we are finding, what our data, it may be the shape or the message that our data will throw up. When this happens, we call it equifinality. Equal ending, I think so. Equal final. Something like that. Yes, Perpetua.
Finding it difficult to now differentiate this diagram and that of conjunctural.
Yeah, okay. They very much look alike, I must say, but there is only one difference. And what is that difference? Yes. These are quantitative people. They see diagrams. They are used to diagrams. Yes, Crispin.
Okay, the first sign. Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Same as she's very true. The difference is that if you take away one,
yes,
it's poverty will still okay without
yeah.
But on the earlier example, if you take away one, the outcome
will thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I think that is in conjunctural they conjoin. In this one, each is capable on its own of producing.
I understand that, but Shelly, I just explained it in a layman way.
To a laywoman. Okay, very good. Another pattern that we may find is what is called path dependence. Path dependence simply means some factors occurred in the past and they are responsible for the situation we have in the present. And so, if we want to understand behavior, if we want to understand situations, we want to understand outcomes now, we need to go back to one thing, one decision, one event, some kind of thing that happened in the past in order to understand what the present is about. And if we want to undo or to solve the problem here, we do not look here, because that knot was tied by some event some time ago. And we look at this diagram, for instance. Here you see a pattern, like these independent stars or particles. But as time moves on, the variety seems to begin to converge somewhere around the middle. We just say phase 1, and then we have phase 2. Somewhere along this line, there is a lock-in, to the point that all these stars now continue to behave like this. In some situations, the reality is just like that. And if we don't understand what has happened in the past, we cannot explain why these things continue to be like this. If you like, keep throwing the different stars. Put one up here, it will come and settle here. Tie one here, it will find its way and go here. Because certain things have happened in the past that now predispose these items to take the shape that they take. I'll give you, again, I know this is quite abstract, but let's look at some very concrete examples. Let's start from an old example. You know, this was the way the QWERTY keyboard is arranged. Is really, there is no logic to it. I mean, it's not as if Q, there is nothing about this index finger and letter Q, or about this and letter AS, you know. But somehow it came to be. And then, of course, we also have ASCII, which is the French version of QWERTY. But even ASCII means nothing. I mean, I would be say if you start with A, B, C, D, E, then we say okay, it follows alphabetical arrangement. But it has there is no language that begins with letter Q followed by W. But some arrangement, some decision, some convenience elsewhere then led to that. Now, you and I buy phones today, which is like 500 years older than this. But then they still follow the keyboard pattern, still follow the same. Yes, no. Yes. I know you can do something, you can download keyboard with A, B, C, D now that most people use. But you buy a laptop today, no, the ultra modern, the most expensive of them, like Remi's laptop. He spent a lot of money buying that thing. He still came with this confused keyboard. So, but why? Why won't keyboards change? Why won't people say, oh, come, let's sit down and change this thing? It's like, that is the way, it's okay. That is the way it has always been. So it's not even our decision. It's the decision of our ancestors. I mean, I'm making us to feel good because really, I don't think my ancestors even used this. So that is an example. But some more, other situations can just, you can't understand the outcome or whatever you are seeing here. It is not a product of now. It's a product of something that happened somewhere centuries ago, or maybe not that many years ago. One major implication of path dependence for policy, I'm sure it is clear. I'm sure we can guess what the implication of path dependence for policy is. What do you think? For instance, hey, Dio.
I think it underscores the importance of history.
Okay, the importance of history, yeah.
How use historical analysis and this kind of thing.
I agree with you, quite agree with you. But one thing path dependence teaches us is the longer a practice has lived, the more difficult it is to change it. The longer a tradition has been in existence, the more difficult it will be to change it. So there are situations where we have interethnic problems and people say, let's just sit down and talk about this thing. So they set up, what do they normally set up? Something of inquiry. Commission, panel of inquiry. The Shmenu Commission of Inquiry. So they set it up, and then they call everybody together and say, okay, now you see, you have to love your brothers and you have to be your brothers' keepers. What you did was good, but what you did was bad. So now let us pray. Everybody pray. Now we have signed an undertaking. There will be no violence again in this community. Sometimes it doesn't take another month. And then a worse one even may happen. It's because we just didn't go beyond here. We are already here. So we're taking these stars. We put one. Okay, you stars, you are hitting one another. Stop hitting one another. So you stand here, you there, stand there. But there is something about this that is even beyond these stars that makes them to go again and collide. And until we understand that situation, what really caused this, which requires historical analysis, most of the time, as Dio said, it's not easy to solve the problem. Yes, Nkechi?
What I think is somehow saying the same thing, but in a different way.
Okay.
Like in a social development, when you see what is it called? You find out that a child that is maybe oral, forensic, and all those stages, when they are presented at that time, in their adulthood, they will start acting in a way And that way they are acting, you trace it back. There are an elderly person that is up to 32 that is always talking too much. Stop talking too much.
Or sucking finger.
Very difficult. So when you trace it back to that age 0, 1, 2, 3, you find out that there was a physician during that period that causes this.
Yeah.
So the cause must be traced.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. There was a study of police reforms in the US. I've forgotten the author, but they discovered that there was this reforms that were proposed, and some police stations adopted the reforms. And others were, you see, they were procrastinating. And you know how strong and independent these institutions are in the developed countries. So they weren't taking up these reforms, And these researchers went about just, what is it that is causing, what is the X to this reluctance to adopt these reforms? What is the cause? And you and I would think, maybe the cause is, And so, I don't remember exactly what their findings, but they discovered that first and foremost, the ones that are resistant to these reforms, are the old established police stations. The new ones were quickly taking up the reforms. In other words, these guys, their ways were set, and everything depends on that. That is why it is easier to start something new in Bowen, for instance, and it will happen. When you start it in University of Legon or UI, they'll say, no, that is not, It is not because you are a private university alone, but it's also because these people already have established traditions. Right. Okay. Are there questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Critical juncture and the locking has not been explained.
Well, locking is locking. I mean, it's just to say something happens here that this variety really came to a close here. But thank you. Critical juncture dictates that has a long-lasting impact on other things that follow. Okay, so there is like an established way of doing things. Diversity seems to really have been mainstreamed. You go to Catholic church and they say, I want to be praying loud, and it's okay. You are accommodated. You'll be praying loud. You'll be, but then the basic Catholicism is still there that defines who you are. If you want to still remain a part. I don't know whether this is a very good example. Okay. Rather than correlation. And so we will look at the next few slides to think about what we call the causal mechanism or causal chain. In the equation that we drew, where we say X is the cause, Y is the outcome, so we use Z. Sorry? We use Z to stand for causal mechanism. Sorry, not this one here. And we look at these types of causal chains that we have. Typically, we can have a direct causal relation. In other words, we don't even have a chain in between, just as I said when we started. And we say that is really uncommon in social situations. I think it's possible to say a gunshot and then death, and there is nothing in between, maybe. But in most real-life situations, you usually have some steps in between. For want of a better term, we just call this indirect causal chain, whereas we call this one direct. I mean, nothing in between. But this one we say indirect. There is something in between. So this is child's ability, this is academic achievement. But in between child's ability and academic achievement, we have school type. We can have something that is a bit more typically, it looks more like this, from a study. that we did that Ernest mentioned this morning. So, democratic status and poor service delivery. Now, let me just summarize that the democratic status of a local government influences its service delivery. And we know in Nigeria, there are two types of local government administration. There is the type that people voted for and elected, and there are very few these days. And there is the type that the Constitution allows the governor to say, hey, I like the way you campaigned when I was in the election, how you slapped that other guy who was very rude. I hope he has learned his lesson and now make you the chairman of your local government. He's not even happy.
There is no name of local government.
Are you from? What's your local government? Okay. Go and resume tomorrow. See, I made you chair. Now, those ones are appointed, right? So we're wondering, would this matter in the way these local government area administrations deliver when it comes to to service delivery? So, this is actually a status elected. This is the status of the elected. So this should have been an elected democratic status. Leads to pressure to perform. These chairmen in this category who were elected feel pressured to impress those who elected them and to also assert their administrative competence and so on and so forth. As a result of that, they created big projects. They brought some, in the local government we studied, they brought some people together, they gave them uniform. They say, you are now community police. We'll be paying you 5,000 naira every month. They started renovation and so on and so forth. In between this and that, there are some other steps. Money dried up. Remember that whether you were elected or appointed, the money from the federal government coming to you will be paid to whom? To the states. Then the states say, yeah, they call it a joint, yes, joint allocation, joint allocation something. Joint local government account. So the governor of this state or county, in the case of Kenya, then says, okay, yeah, you got X amount, but you see this road and that road, so just take this more, do whatever you can do with it and eat, yeah, and so on. So, but this one, so even if you are independently elected, you are still at the mercy of the state governor. So money dried up, projects were abandoned, and this guy got very bad rating in his service delivery. So rather than being, election leading to better services as theory would lead us to expect, election here leads to even poorer services. But this is just like a causal relationship or a causal chain. We are interested in here and how these steps work out. It may even be more complicated than this. Take this as boxes and lines, which is what they are. So, elected democratic status, pressure to perform on one hand, expansion of, this is just an illustration, this is not what we found. Yeah, so, but let's imagine this guy was elected, he faces pressure to perform, and then he expands government institutions. This leads to increase in government expenditure. Then there is no money to spend on service delivery. This one, pressure to perform, he creates big projects, and then also as pressure to perform, it increases government spending, it increases salaries of civil servants. Yeah. So it drains the income, revenue, and then all of that leads to poor service delivery. Sometimes we wish reality is as simple as direct causal relation, but sometimes in reality it is hardly ever like this. How many of us remember this guy called Sheikh in Steve Sloman's work?
The guy who tried to poison his wife.
He tried to poison?
His wife.
No?
The wife tried to.
Oh yeah, the wife tried to. The mistress.
It was the wife that. The wife tried to.
The wife wanted to.
Then the mistress cut. Then the mistress cut her back. Then the water.
Yeah. So here was the guy who set out. I mean, nice guy, married just one wife, but then had a mistress outside. And then set out to travel across the desert, maybe long distance in those days, and then fill this water bottle with water. But then the wife heard and felt, if this guy goes and dies, at least all this money will be mine. So he went there and put sniper. You know, in Nigeria, sniper is poison. So she went there and put a few drops of poison, covered it back neatly. Then the mistress also heard that, Oga is traveling. So she said, if he goes and dies, at least he cannot come back and be talking like he wants to take back this brand new car he has bought for me. So my life will be more secure. So she took a fine pin, I'm just joking, and then drilled a hole there. Poor man took off, I mean, you know the story. Poor man took off the following day and went on his way. Midway in the desert, he was thirsty, he wanted to drink. He brought out the canteen. There was no water there. The water had leaked. He didn't find water anywhere. He emaciated, lost strength, and died. So, question. Who killed the sheikh?
The mistress.
The mistress killed the sheikh. Right. Yeah, so dehydration killed the sheikh. Dehydration was caused by
The mistress.
by the leaking water. Yeah. Leaking water was